Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our Let's Play of Elegies Aya. We are kind of like in danger, and let's see if we get out of there. Did I get the right? Wait. Did I get the right point? Let's see. I guess we did. Hours later, Aya and I are huddled behind a foul-smelling dumpster in an alleyway downtown. We set off without much of a plan, just wanting to get as far away from the house as possible in case that guy was chasing us. Eventually, my bad leg and some other minor injuries from yet another daring window escape caught up to me, and we had to find somewhere to rest for a little bit while keeping out of sight as much as possible. I stretched out my leg and surveyed the scratches on my arms from where the tree branches slowed my fall to the ground. A couple of them were bleeding earlier, but they don't look so bad anymore. I guess I got out of this one alright in comparison.
Does it hurt?
Kinda.
The scratches? Nah, my leg is killing me from all the walking, though. I should have thought to bring my cane out the window, too.
Maybe we can buy a new one once we're sure we're safe. Do you have any money?
Let's see.
I rummaged through my messenger bag, taking stock of everything we have with us.
Yeah, looks like I did leave my wallet in here. Not much cash in it, but I do have my debit card.
Aya peers into the bag over my shoulder.
How's your laptop? It didn't get damaged in the fall, did it?
Oh, good question.
I slid it out of its padded compartment, flipped it open, and hit the power button.
Seems like it's running okay. I guess the bag cushioned it pretty well.
Whew, that's good.
Yeah, tell me about it. I'd hate it if I had to ask Aunt Claire to buy me a... Aunt Claire.
With the adrenaline of the chase having faded, the impact of what I saw back at the house has time to finally hit me.
Do you think... she's alive?
You should call, like, an ambulance?
Maybe she could be. Gunshot wounds aren't necessarily fatal, right? Depending on where she got shot. I didn't really see, but she was bleeding a lot.
Aya doesn't sound confident at all.
Yeah, it looked bad. I wish I could have helped her, but we can't go back, right? That guy with the gun must still be looking for us. For me, I mean.
Well, someone else must have heard the gunshot, right? No way none of your neighbors noticed the huge commotion. Someone must have called an ambulance or something. So maybe they got there in time and she's recovering in the hospital right now.
Aya's face light up as she considers the optimistic possibility. I do my best to believe it in as much as she does.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
But I can't quite summon a smile. Deep down, I have the feeling that I've lost a loved one yet again. Something tells me that it was inevitable. That I was never going to live a happy life again after my parents died, no matter what. Maybe I was a fool to think I could. The fire was the beginning of the end for me, and I've been destined for tragedies ever since. No. Maybe the fire wasn't the beginning. Maybe it started even earlier.
Aya, do you remember what I said to the detective back in the hospital? About that guy I saw hanging around outside my house? My old house, right before the fire?
The shifty-looking guy? The one who asked if you lived there?
Yeah, that guy.
I close my eyes, summoning images I'd really rather forget to the forefront of my mind.
Back then in the hospital, I could barely remember what he looked like or anything. It felt so insignificant compared to everything else that I had once exchanged a few words with a creepy stranger in another life before it all changed. But the more I think about it,
I take a shaky breath, my shoulders heaving with it.
Aya, I think that was the same guy. I think he's the one who shot Claire. I think he might have been following me. I might have caught a glimpse of him at the art fair.
Aya's eyes are wide with shock as I furrow my brows and struggle to remember.
You mean he's like he could be after your whole family?
That must be it, right? I don't know why else he'd... Why all of this?
My breathing gets shallower, my voice growing increasingly frantic.
What did my family ever do to deserve any of this? What did Aunt Claire...
I pull my knees up to my chest and throw my head into my hands. Tears I can't control soak my fingers and drip down to my wrists. I feel a cold sensation on my back and realize that Aya must have placed her hand there in an attempt to comfort me.
You're going to be okay, Zach. We can get through this. How about we find somewhere to sleep for the night? You'll feel better once you get some rest. We can figure everything else out tomorrow, okay?
Weakly, I look up at her and nod, my face stained with
Want
tears.
to try the park? I've always thought some of those benches looked pretty comfy. I don't think it's too far from here. I explored around a lot the night before, so I can be your guide.
Okay, sounds good.
I can't say I share her opinion about the park benches, but now that I've gotten out some of my sadness and anger, the most overwhelming feeling left is pure exhaustion. She's right. I'll be able to think more clearly after a good night's sleep. Or whatever kind of night's sleep I can manage to get on a cold, hard bench anyway. And no matter what happens, my best friend is still here with me. We can figure out what to do next together. Gently, without putting too much weight on my bad leg, I stand up and follow her out of the alleyway and down the sidewalk toward the park. Oh boy. I wake up, cold, stiff, and disoriented. Rubbing some warmth back into my sore shoulder, I sit up and squint at my surroundings. It's still dark, but I can make out enough familiar sights to understand that I'm in the park downtown. For a moment, I wonder what I'm doing sleeping on a park bench. And then the events of the previous day flash back into my mind, and I let out a deep sigh of sadness and anguish.
You okay?
Aya floats over me nearby. Aya floats over from a nearby tree. I don't know how to answer her.
What time is it?
About 5 a.m., I think.
Right. I collapsed on this bench pretty early yesterday evening, so it makes sense that it would still be dark when I wake up. But I wish I could have slept later and been greeted by the light of a new day. Maybe that would have improved my mood somehow. Right now, in the dim, cloudy dawn, my situation doesn't even feel real. Like, if I lay back down and close my eyes again, I could wake up to Aunt Claire calling me downstairs for breakfast. Or even earlier in my old room, with my dad making coffee downstairs. But then I guess I wouldn't have Aya. A stab of hunger snaps me out of my reverie, and my stomach rumbles along with it.
You hungry? I scouted out the area a bit, and I think we could grab a bite to eat at this diner called Fred's.
Oh, Fred Steiner. I hope it's not Freddy Fazbear's.
It's open 24 hours.
Fred's? I don't think I've ever been there.
Well, there's never a bad time to try something new, right?
Aya grins, but I can tell the expression is plastered on in an attempt to cheer me up. I appreciate it.
Sure, breakfast at Fred's sounds nice.
Then come on, I'll show you.
I got to my feet slowly, my muscles still protesting at the uncomfortable choice of sleeping quarters. My bad leg throbs and I shift my weight off it as much as possible. I'm definitely going to need to get a new cane. But for now, I limp down the street after Aya, who floats cheerfully along slightly ahead of me. She leads me to an establishment with a neon sign and a shrill bell that rings to announce my entrance through the heavy door. Inside, it has that kind of fake 1950s decor that you see in a lot of restaurants. But here, it's all so peeled and fading that it looks like it might have actually been around since back then. The place is pretty empty. I only spot two other customers, both quietly drinking coffee on their own. One is a tired-looking man in a suit with a newspaper, and the other is a teenager toting a huge backpack. I wonder what has the two of them awake at this hour like I am. I notice a TV in one corner of the room softly playing the morning news as an older woman in an apron approaches me at the front counter. Table for one? I have to stop myself from instinctively correcting her before she shows us to our table. I'm always forgetting that other people can't see Aya. The waitress hands me a slightly sticky menu and pours a cup of coffee before leaving me alone to decide on my meal. I slurp the coffee greedily, hoping it won't take too long to kick in and make me feel a little less exhausted. Aya sits next to me and leans over my shoulder to look at the menu.
What are you going to get?
I had been thinking I'd go for something cheap and simple like scrambled eggs on toast. I don't want to spend too much money when I have no idea how long Aya and I will be on the run like this. But then I see it. The big breakfast. 3 eggs with maple syrup infused sausages, home fries, and baked beans. My mouth is watering already. I quickly decide that getting a lot of food is really the most rational and pragmatic decision here. After all, I don't know where my next meal is coming from, so I'd better fill up. It doesn't take long to arrive once I've ordered it, and soon I'm digging into one of the most delicious breakfasts I ever eaten.
That looks so good. I'm kind of jealous.
I feel a little bad that Aya can't experience this hearty meal the way I can, but not bad enough to stop shoveling it into my mouth with satisfaction and glee. More coffee?
Sure, thanks.
I answer with my mouth full, and the waitress refills my cup before heading off to do the same for one of the other customers. I swallow a forkful of beans and wash it down with a sip of hot coffee. I'm enjoying this breakfast so much that I'm even starting to feel kind of relaxed. That is, until the voice of the newscaster on the television says something that shatters the atmosphere completely. In local news, police are searching for an aunt and nephew, Clarabelle and Zachary Gilbert, following a concerning disappearance. I drop my fork with a clatter and snap my head in the direction of the television. One of my old school photographs is up there on the screen, next to an extremely unflattering one of what looks like a much younger Aunt Claire. Officers arrived at the family's Lowe's Avenue home yesterday morning after a neighbor reported hearing a gunshot. They found signs of a struggle and traces of blood in the front hall, but neither one of the home's residents could be found. Does it mean Aunt Claire escaped too? Is she okay? Or does it just mean that the guy who shot her hit her body? Clarabelle Gilbert had recently become a legal guardian of her nephew Zachary following the tragic death of his parents in a house fire. An image of my childhood home ablaze fills the screen, and I look away, my heart pounding. While the fire was labeled an accident at the time, this disappearance so soon after it raises questions about whether criminals may be targeting the Gilbert family. The late Michael and Julie Gilbert were celebrated scientific researchers, but police investigations show that Clarabelle had a record of juvenile offenses, including vandalism and other misdemeanors. Anyone who may have any information about the whereabouts of Clarabelle and Zachary Gilbert should call the number on screen now. Police are also still looking for an answer about last week's robbery at... The newscaster's voice seemed to fade into the background again as I put my head in my hands and think over the ramification of what I just heard. Should I call the cops and tell them what happened? But what if they don't believe me? Is it safer for us to stay on the run? But that shady guy must still be looking for me too, right? If the cops find me, that might make it easier for him to find me too. But where am I going to go? I turn to Aya and find her looking just as anxious and confused as I am.
Zach, maybe we should get out of here. They just showed your face on TV. Someone might recognize you. Let's go somewhere safer and figure out what to do next.
I nod at her and give a little wave to get the waitress' attention. She brings over the bill and I can't stop my sharp intake of breath when I look at the price of that breakfast. I don't even feel like finishing it now that the news has replaced my hunger with a sickening feeling of fear. I'm not getting my money's worth at all. And I'm in a way too much of a hurry to ask for a to-go box. Still, I pull out my debit card to pay. I don't have quite enough cash, and make a hurried exit back out into the street. The sun is starting to peek through the clouds, and there are a few more people out and about waiting at bus stops or unlocking storefronts. I try to stick to the shadows as I shuffle away from the diner with no particular destination in mind. Eventually, the increasing pain in my leg forces me to stop, and I lean against the brick wall of a darkened building.
You okay?
Yeah, just give me a minute.
Okay.
Aya drifts away, checking out our surroundings before floating back to my side.
Where do you want to go next?
I don't know!
My response come out in a frustrated snap, and I immediately feel bad about it when I see Aya's face fall.
Sorry. I'm not mad at you. I don't have any ideas. I don't know what I'm doing or where I'm going. I wish I could go home.
Yeah, feel you, boy. Aya gives me a sympathetic nod.
Me too.
I wonder if she means Aunt Claire's house, or the hospital, or the other home she lost so long before I even lost mine. I sigh and push off of the wall so I can stretch a bit. Glancing at the building that I choose to lean against, I realize it's the same pizza place where Aya was shocked by the fire in the oven at the art festival. Was that really only a few days ago? It's dark enough to see my reflection in the glass. And I look like such a mess that I wish I wasn't. My hair is tousled and unwashed, and my clothes are torn and smeared with dirt from when I went out the window. Anyone who saw me wandering the streets right now would probably assume I was homeless. I guess they'd be right. At least that might give me some freedom to talk out loud to Aya without worrying about how people might react. No one thinks twice about a homeless guy talking to himself. They just look the other way and hope he doesn't bother them for spare change. Looking like this, I could be almost as invisible as Aya. A flicker of moment behind me in the glass catches my eyes, and I turn around to see the frighteningly familiar frame of a tall man in a suit across the street.
Aya, am I really going crazy or...
That's one of those creepy guys from my old neighborhood.
It's the taller one of the two men who lured me into that dusty apartment. I think his partner called him Mr. Kid. Without shifting his gaze away from me, he steps out down over the curb and begins to stride across the road in my direction. A car careenes to a halt just before hitting him, the driver laying on the horn. The tall man doesn't even flinch in his slow but dodged pursuit.
What's he doing here? How did he...
Come on, let's go!
Oh boy, no, not again! Whipping my head back and forth in search of an escape route, I notice a nearby bus stop and take off a slightly uneven jog. I grit my teeth against the pain shooting up my leg as the bus pulls up just ahead of me. Luckily, a woman with a baby carriage is getting on the bus too, and the extra time it takes the driver to lower the ramp and help her aboard allows me to hop on just behind her. I fish my student card out of my pocket and hold it up on my way to a window seat where I can check to find out how short-lived my safety might be. Craning my neck, I see Mr. Kid standing on the sidewalk in front of the pizza place. He's looking around as if trying to figure out which way I went. Maybe the bus arrival blocked his view of me, and he doesn't know that I got on. My breath catches in my throat as he takes a step in this direction, and I worry that he's figured it out and is about to break into a run and catch us. But then, the doors of the bus swing shut. The engine rumbles as we pull away from the side of the road. I turn my head away, hoping he won't be able to recognize me through the window of the bus as we go past him. The bus picks up speed and I can finally breathe again. Aya and I are safe. For now. But I can read fear and confusion in her face, and I'm feeling the exact same way.
How did he find you? And why is he...
She gasped.
Do you think he's working with the other guy? The one who... Zach, what's going on?
I respond with a heaving sigh and a defeated shrug. I have no idea how to answer her. The only thing I know for sure is that someone, or some group of people, is after me. And that means Aya and I need to stay on the run. Oh boy! This gets really dangerous right now. Aya and I spent a long and tiring day looking over our shoulders as we wander the streets of the city. We keep an eye out of places that might be safe to hide later on, as well as stopping in a few stores to pick up supplies. I put together a slightly cleaner outfit from a second-hand clothing place, and the drugstore furnishes me with a new cane that helps me keep some of my weight off my aching ankle. My bag is now packed with a sweater and a blanket in case I have to sleep outside again, plus a few emergency snacks and water bottles. I'm not really sure how much money I have left in my bank account, but I know it's not much. Just a little that I saved up from allowance and birthday gifts over the years. Every time I go to pay for something, I get a little anxious that I have to use it all up and the card will get declined. If this keeps up, I guess I need to find a way to make some money. Maybe I can pick up some odd jobs somewhere. But my meager savings have held up for now. So, as the sun sets over the harsh streets we now live in, Aya and I make our way back to Fred's diner. We figure anyone who might have recognized me in that area earlier will be long gone by now. And a 24-hour restaurant is a good place to is as good a place as any to stay warm for a little while before heading somewhere else to sleep. That and their coffee is actually pretty good. I could definitely go for some more. Fred's is a little less empty than it was this morning, but not by much. It still has the listless atmosphere of a place where people only go when they are tired and couldn't find anywhere else. The waitress on shift is a young woman with dark eyeliner and a series of colorful pins and buttons on her apron. She blows a big pink bubble of chewing gum as she wordlessly jerks her thumb towards one of the many empty tables. Leaning on my new cane, I take a few steps toward it before I am interrupted by a chilling, familiar voice.
Good evening, Zachary.
I'm not sure if I'm happy to hear her now or if I'm not happy to hear her now. I freeze.
Oh no, it's her!
Stiffly turning my head to the side, I see Detective Sloane Tyrus seated in a darkened corner booth. The collar of her coat is pulled up around her jawline and steam curls towards the ceiling from the half-empty cup of coffee resting by her elbow.
Why don't you take a seat?
Stall her as much as you can before she calls her back up. I'll start looking for a way out.
Aya zooms off toward the restaurant's kitchen. Not knowing what else to do, I slide down into the booth across the table from the detective. It's a cramped spot with the edge of the table forcing me into an upright posture. I keep a tight grip on my crane.
You don't have to look so scared, Zachary. I'm here to help you.
When have you ever done anything to help me before?
You haven't let me try.
She's right. She's kinda right. He didn't give her the chance. She takes a swig of the coffee, then sets her chin on one hand.
I know you don't like me prying into your personal business, Zachary. You and your aunt have made that pretty clear. But you must have realized by now that what's going on here is much bigger than you and your personal concerns. I promise you. I just want you to be safe.
I kinda trust her.
Oh yeah?
More than the other guys. I find myself slamming my fist onto the table, all of my rage at the continued loss of my loved one spilling out again.
If you care so much about my safety, then where were you when a man with a gun showed up at my front door and shot Aunt Claire in front of me in broad daylight? Apparently, you're watching my every move just so that you can turn up and harass me wherever I go. So why didn't you stop him? Why didn't you save her? Why didn't you?
I run out of words to express my anger and dissolve into shaky, heaving breaths. Out of the corner of my eye, I realize that a few of the diner's other patrons have turned to see what I was yelling about. But I don't keep staring for long before returning to their food or their phones. Meanwhile, the detective gazes me with a softer and more sympathetic expression than I expected.
I'm not watching your every move, Zachary. At least, I wasn't before today. But you have to understand that once you disappeared from your aunt's house yesterday, you became a missing person. A missing child at that. It's my responsibility as a police officer to find you and bring you home.
Home? I don't even know where that is anymore.
Fortunately, it wasn't difficult for us to track your debit purchases and check the relevant security cameras. I came here because I thought you'd be likely to come back, and because I figured it might be a comfortable place for us to talk. I just want to know what happened to you so that I can help you, Zachary.
Girl, don't sound so bitter. It's understandable he's angry.
You say a man with a gun shot your aunt?
Not just any man with a gun.
I smash my fist down again, my nails digging into my
It
hand.
was the same man I told you about the first time we met in the hospital. The guy who was hanging around my house before the fire. He's been after me ever since. If you've been trying to help me so much, why didn't you find him and arrest him before things got this far?
The detective leans in toward me, her eyebrows furrowed.
The same man? You're sure?
Yes, I'd say I'm pretty sure I'd recognize the man who killed my family.
If you could describe the man. I mean, I could get a sketch artist and...
Oh, sure. Great idea. Let's just sit around here drawing pictures while he's out there shooting more people. How hard could it possibly be for the cops to find a guy who's running around town with a gun?
If it's America, it's really hard, I guess.
Aren't there security cameras everywhere these days? You found me, so...
Zachary, you're a confused teenager.
No, he's an angry teenager.
You're a little easier to track than a seasoned criminal.
Oh, I'm confused, am I?
My frustration boils over again and I get to my feet, pushing myself away from the table.
You know what? Maybe you're right. I'm confused about why we're still having this conversation. Are you going to arrest me? Because if not, I've got better things to do.
I half expect her to pull out a pair of handcuffs. I'm sure there's some kind of law that says I can't be out unsupervised late at night, or that she can do whatever she needs to get information about what happened to Aunt Claire or something. But instead, Tyrell looks up at me with a hint of sadness in her
I
eyes.
wish you could trust me, Zachary.
You haven't made that sound very appealing.
I know that you've been through a lot, and that you probably feel like there's no one you can rely on.
I would say please trust her, please. She's your only way to get out of this shit.
But if you give me a chance, I can prove to you that...
Zach!
Aya hurtles back through the wall, a look of excitement in her eyes.
There's a back exit through the kitchen, and tons of places to hide out in the alleyway. So if we need to get out of here, we're set. Just give me the signal, and I'll be your guide.
She lifts her ghostly hand into a quasi-military salute. Meanwhile, the detective is still seated in the booth, her mouth half open in an expression of confusion and surprise. She sees Aya. It is like the first time in the hospital. She sees Aya. So she can see ghosts too? Or at least Aya? I give Aya a subtle nod before continuing the conversation.
What?
Huh?
You'll prove it to me that what?
Oh,
She blinks a few times as if to regain her focus.
I forgot what I was going to say. You know, it's funny, but for a second there, I thought...
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Mr. Kid, oh no!
Oh no!
I turn my head toward the entrance of the diner from where a deep voice just extended a full polite greeting. It's him. The other weird guy from Aya's old neighborhood. The one who talks like an alien.
Perhaps there's something you can help me with.
You can just pick any table. A young woman not getting paid nearly enough to deal with this makes a valiant attempt at handling the situation.
I do regret to inform you, but I won't be staying long. I'm merely searching for an acquaintance of mine. A young man. In fact, I know him as Mr. Smith, but his name is really...
He turns to face me across the diner, his lips curling into a sadistic smile.
Gilbert, isn't it? Mr. Zachary Gilbert.
Shoot. Tyrell is on her feet, placing her body in between us.
Zachary, is that him? The man with the gun?
You!
I back away from the detective, inching toward Aya as she directs me to the kitchen door in my peripheral vision.
You're working with those guys, aren't you? That's what's going on here. You were stalling until he showed up.
Those guys? There's more than one?
There's a whole group of them stalking me. And you're part of it too, aren't you? That's how all of you always know where I am.
Okay, the door's on your right now, Zach. You're really close to it. The second there's a good distraction, run.
That's right. We do always know where you are, Mr. Gilbert. So there's no use trying to escape. We'll simply find you again. Now, all my colleagues and I want to do is ask you a few questions.
Wait a minute. I asked the question.
The detective wipes her identification out of her coat pocket and brandishes it high in the air.
Detective Sloan Tyrell, what do you want with Zachary?
Oh, you know well enough, don't you, detective?
I think I'm supposed to call my manager.
Zach, no!
With both threats temporarily focused on each other, I use my new cane to help me pivot around and roll through the door to the kitchen.
Over here!
I shoulder past a stunt-line cook and slam my body into a heavy metal door before tumbling out into the dark alleyway beyond. And that, people, is where we stop this episode right now, just to make sure we don't miss anything. So yeah, guys, it gets really dangerous for us, and I don't know how this will play out in the end. I hope you will stay with me. If you don't want to miss an episode, leave a like and follow this account. I hope we are back soon. Until then, bye bye!